Welcome to the channel. My name is Jason, and here is where I talk about all things story. And the story we are talking about today is one of my own. Yes, it is episode 29 of Worth 1000 Words, the series where I write a 1000 word short story based on a piece of artwork without an outline. And today is something different, truly different. I know I say that a lot, and I know I've said that a lot. This one is a new experiment, and hopefully it will stretch me even further. I'll learn a bit more, and maybe this story will suffer for it. We will see, or you will see. I already know. So a couple of announcements before I move on, and I should have announced this before, but I have a Discord. It's called The Writer's Room. The link is in the description. It is free for everyone to join. There is no paywall. It's a group of all creative types where we talk about books and movies and video games and all things like that. And not only talk about craft, but talk about the things that inspire us. So highly encourage you to join. It's small right now, but hopefully we'll grow and have a thriving community of like-minded people. Second announcement. New book, yes. I announced it on Instagram and Twitter, but in case you don't follow me, here is the proof of my new book called Forged of Ice and Blood. Doing a little bit of editing, checking it out, making sure the cover looks good, but yeah, here it is. It's a short story. It's about 60 some pages in total. Well, the story itself is about 60 pages. It will be on sale very soon, and all the proceeds are going to charity. I don't want to get into it in this video. I will make a video when the book is out to go into all that stuff. But it's for a great cause, and I, it's a good little story. I think you'll enjoy it. It's fantasy, which I don't write a lot of, but there are reasons why I did so, which again I will get into on the launch video. But anyway, let's move on. The music today. What is the soundtrack of this story? It is by an ambient band. I know, big surprise, right? And the title is called "And the Refinement of the Decline" by Stars of the Lid. And I had to change it about halfway because the music I did choose it wasn't fitting. It was messing with my head. I couldn't get the words out. And I'm not going to put it up here because I don't want to paint the album in a negative light. It's not a bad album by any means, but it just wasn't working for me and the writing process. All right, with all that out of the way, let's check out this week's artwork. This week's artwork is titled Midwife, and it is by Ausonia, a concept artist, illustrator, comic artist, and writer from Italy. The purpose of this exercise and why I chose this one was a portrait. I wanted to tell a story, or attempt to tell a story, with very little information, but there's something very curious and very interesting about this image of a very old woman with a very misshapen head and very misshapen shoulders. Considering this is from a bestiary, number 71, in fact, and the fact that you can see she is quite monstrous, I can imagine what the artist was going for here. But what lurks behind those eyes? That is my job today, to figure that out. Ausonia, thank you for the expertly rendered, creepy midwife. I think this is going to be probably the most challenging story I've ever written, but I'm looking forward to it. So let's see what I came up with. Hands, palms up in the basin. Not too little water. She couldn't afford to not be clean, nor too much. She couldn't afford it to spill over. A mirror, polished. She startled herself. How the light shone through the window, to the spot, to catch her, to hold her, to show her. Hands, palms up in the basin. In another time. No mirror, no reflection. A pity, because the midwife's hands were beautiful then. An unblemished silk cream. The woman was calm in the bed in the small room. The midwife was thankful for that. Nearly passed out from the pain, hanging on enough to see her child enter the world in a pain of its own, drowning to live. Rest, the midwife said. All will be as it should. It would be. Somehow she knew. The baby lay as the mother, in near slumber. No man to welcome the unwelcome. The midwife would welcome him. Yes, a boy. Quiet as one could hope. As breathless as one could hope. The mother wouldn't want him. Not like this. Shivering in the heat, the midwife took the child. It was all she could do. It was all she wanted. The village path was clear, except for a man carrying wood. The midwife changed directions as if he were a black cat. Behind her, the wood dropped. Feet ran. A door opened. A man shouted. Deep in the forest, dress in tatters from the tree's claws, the midwife knelt at the side of a lake. Behind her, the wind. It caressed the water to disturb her beauty. Only a glimpse had been given, and even that was a shadow of a shadow. Beside her, the child, eyes as gray as the sky, as still. Rest, she said. All will be as it should. Her shoulder itched. When she reached to scratch it, the hair draping her back fell to the ground. Must have been the trees, but she felt no pain. Voices and torchlight soon came while she waited for no one and nothing at the water's edge. Turn, give in. She deserved it. She did turn. Flame danced with the forest. Swimming she used to enjoy. She slipped through the water, slipped from her dress, and arrived at the opposite shore naked but unharmed, arms empty of child. No. She searched the shallows in a sheet of tears, dove as deep as her breath would allow. She had no words. The forest allowed her an escape. To where? To a clothesline where she stole a dress. It fit her good enough, though when she went to tie her wet hair back, there wasn't much to gather. Threads of seaweed through her fingers. She wept, on her knees, in the grass, for her child. She snatched a bonnet from the line and tugged it over her head. It didn't feel right. The mirror. Her face was the water's surface, twisted by her thrashing arms and legs. Her eyes were the mud where the baby slept. She closed them. She thought of the baby then, her skin curdled cream. The city bustled, passers-by paying her no mind. They didn't notice what she hid beneath her cloak, under her cap. It would be all right soon. A home, a family. They welcomed her, trusted her. They said she had the eyes of an angel, and they wanted the child to see an angel. She blushed at that. The woman was upstairs, ripe with the beauty of life, and the midwife would cherish that life. More than her, because she already had others. They chased a cat down the hall, sure to trample it by the sound of their haste. The woman had enough. She had enough to share. The woman smiled at her with blossomed cheeks and eyes of spring pastures. The midwife imagined looking into those eyes, being the child's angel. Rest, she said. All will be as it should. The woman did, breasts plump with milk, rising and falling, rising and falling. The baby came noisily, flailing, gums glistening. The mother held her arms out. The midwife cradled the child. The woman said something, but the midwife only heard the baby as she, yes, a girl, settled into the curve of an angel's wing. The midwife carried the child out of the room, down the hall where the raucous children masked her light steps. The woman screamed. Downstairs, the expectant family didn't notice the baby in the midwife's cloak. With glee and her heart full of love, she opened the door to her life as a mother. The doorway was blocked by a man as large as a door, and she saw the child, saw the family dashing up the stairs in fright, and finally saw the baby. He grabbed her by the shoulders, relieving her of her cloak, which revealed her shoulders that itched fiercely. The baby was next in his arms, half in hers. Two children fighting over a rag doll. The midwife stumbled onto the street, wet with blood. She felt no pain, but she felt nothing. Crowds were the trees of the forest, with stronger fingers, sharper claws. Still she maneuvered through them, and found herself in an abandoned alley where eaves hung low and heavy. There, on hands and knees, she faced a puddle that showed her an outline that was no angel, but a darkness, the color of blood mixed with shadow. Her hands, palms up, shriveled and tired, were clean. The midwife did not greet the mirror again. She crossed the room where the child was, straw hair slicked to scalp, eyes the color of the sky outside the window. The midwife didn't pick her up. She admired her, breathed in that indescribable scent as the door rattled on its hinges to the beating of fists. She sat on the stool next to the crib, ignoring the door as it crashed into the room, looked at the child and said, "Rest. All will be as it should." So hands up, palm up, palms up in the basin, not too little water. So what I wanted to do is first establish where this woman was. And the first image that came into my mind was this woman looking at herself in a mirror. The expression on her face is interesting. It's as if there's some deeper thoughts going on, almost a realization of some kind. And that's what I was trying to capture to start with. 'Cause she's an old woman, and I thought maybe she was reflecting back on her life, where she came from, and hopefully how she came to the state she's in right now with this really odd shaped head and odd shaped shoulders and very creepy eyes. So I first put her as a young woman in a different place. I use the mirror and reflections in general as a means to transport this character, or at least take her back through the memories of all the things she's done. And this one was quite the struggle for me. You'll notice that in the writing, I go back, change a lot because I had no idea where I was going for a very long time. And I was just spitting out words here, putting this woman in a situation where she would be midwifing. And I had a lot of thoughts going on in my head. Is she going to steal babies because she's going to eat them? Or is she some kind of evil witch or what? And what I decided on, and hopefully I communicated it enough in the story, which there are quite a few faults in the story, I believe. This is probably one of the most rough around the edges stories I've written, I believe, in my opinion. But I'll talk about that after. Really, what struck me was to try to find out how she got to this state. And what I imagined is this is kind of a curse of some kind. It's almost as if her evil deeds or her selfish deeds are manifesting themselves in the physical form all over her body. So it's almost like her shoulders look as if they're going to sprout horns or spikes or something like that. And then her head is hidden by this odd shaped bonnet hat thing, which is, again, hiding those spikes on top of her skull. And so in this first scene, I'm trying to just create some kind of conflict. I had her in this room with a woman having a baby. Then the baby was stillborn, and she took this baby and, ran away with it. I don't believe you see that here. I think when I started out initially, it was she just kind of was in the wrong place, the wrong time, and that was my first inclination, was to go toward the direction of this curse. She was innocent, right? She did nothing wrong. She wasn't this evil person, because that's what I first got in my head, is that she was just this evil witch that stole children. And I was like, that's too cliche. That's too boring. I want to make a tragic character out of this creature. And I don't know if it's the most powerful way. I had a few other ways I was thinking, but this is the one I stuck with. And that is being that she takes these children because all she wants is a child. She can't have a child, but in taking these children, it slowly transforms her. And that's one thing that I felt like I didn't communicate well enough was, her shoulders itching and her hat not feeling quite right. I seeded it here and there. Once I read over the story, I wasn't sure how clear it was. The concept was to have this woman just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So she was a midwife doing her job, and a baby died on her watch. And she was young and afraid to be blamed. And exactly that's kind of what happened, is when she left the house and probably looking quite guilty. The man went into the house where the pregnant woman was, and clearly saw that the baby was dead and the mother was dead or dying, and running away. She felt that she was going to be blamed for this. And I was going to just have a string of events like that. But then I thought, well, that can't, if that keeps happening over and over again, how often can you be in the wrong place, right? At the wrong time. So what I decided then, like I said, is to have her take these children, not because she was, evil or wanting to eat them. She just wanted to be a mother. So she was hoping to take these children and raise them as her own. And it was just a simple want, right? A simple desire to have a child, to be a mother. And so I had her, run through the forest. I changed it to where she had the child in her arms and then lost the child. Even though the child was dead, it was still good enough for her. And I hopefully I established that during the writing, and that, that's the one thing about this whole story is I wasn't quite sure if I communicated enough what was happening. The way her looks were, the way, was the baby dead, and all of the action in between, and hopefully the time travel or memory travel, mental time travel, I guess, through the device of the reflections. And the puddle at the very end, the mirror at the beginning, and then the lake about the midpoint. Crying for the loss of this child, or actually at this point, it's not because of that. It's because she's afraid for her life. And for a split second here, actually for I guess a minute or two, I was thinking right here, through the grass, a man emerged. I was thinking about having someone, kind of a deal with the devil thing. So she was going to, sign her life away to maybe have a child, to maybe get out of trouble. I didn't know at this point. But that's where I was that's where I was going. That's what I was planning on doing. But again, I felt like, oh, that's a little cliche, deal with the devil. I'm sure it could have been done right. I'm sure it probably would have worked to some degree, but I changed my mind. And you can see me going back quite a bit, because that was the main issue I had with this story. And this is where I'm deciding actually what I'm typing right now, where she decides to take the child. So I'm kind of switching gears before I get to the end. And I feel like it's rare that I do this. For some reason, in other stories, I think I have a better outline, because really the visual is the outline. So I don't write these outlines, I don't plan them whatsoever. But when you have an image that has, a person in an environment, or some kind of action happening, or multiple people, you can devise a story pretty quickly. I think your imagination starts to run wild a little bit. And at least it gives you some guideposts. Whereas here, there's nothing. The only story I have is this woman's face and her or deformities. Yeah, that's when I got to, where am I? About halfway, I went way back, and I had to just completely change course, completely rewrite a lot of stuff, because I knew I had to change it. At that point, I said, okay, well, let's have her steal these babies for her own, she wants to be a mother. It's as simple as that. And so I think that's kind of a tragic tale. That's more tragic than something like she's at the wrong place at the wrong time, which is, tragic in itself. But there's something about not getting something you want, or, most people think you might deserve. And so I was hoping to create some kind of empathy with this woman. And I think if I had her sign her soul away in exchange for a child, or exchange for her getting out of trouble, that would have been, that was sort of the device to maybe transform her, right? Like maybe she's becoming more demonic as she gets more to death, which is illustrating the fact that she is a being of hell, or a prisoner of hell, which, that might have been cool. I wanted to just have this curse be unknown. I want it to just kind of happen, and there's no explanation for it. And again, my biggest regret, I think, is not communicating her shoulders and her head. I think possibly where I would have done it would have been at the very end, when she's looking at herself, because I don't want to give it away quite at the beginning. Or actually, that could have worked too, because, if you've seen a lot of movies, they'll start at the end, and you'll see an image of something, or a scene of something, and you're like, okay, you kind of come to your own conclusions, or you hypothesize about what happened, and then the story takes you back. So yeah, I guess it would have worked now that I'm thinking out loud. But yeah, I didn't go that way. And I think when I edit this again, before publication, when I do my yearly volumes of these things, I will probably re-emphasize that. I think that's what's going to make this one a lot stronger because the image is, you know, by definition, very visual. And the most visual aspect of this is, I mean, besides the woman's face, are these just weird anomalies, these weird growths and I don't know, whatever these things are on her body. And so you're just immediately wondering, what is that? Why is she a monster? Did she become this way somehow? But anyway, in the writing, so here we are. The mirror, her face was the water surface disturbed by her thrashing arms and legs. What I'm trying to do there is describe her looking at herself in the present. So, her face, the water surface disturbed, meaning, let me look at her face. It's full of ripples and distortions and things like that. So that's what that was. And then her eyes are the mud where the baby slept. Her eyes are quite creepy. Her irises are very large. And then I take her back. She thought of the baby then. Now, her skin still smooth mostly. I changed that to curdled cream because I began with unblemished cream. And what I wanted to do is hopefully establish that time has passed. So this isn't like zipping back to the present to the past where she pulled the bonnet from the clothesline and the dress and all that. I wanted this to be another time, another place. And so I did that through redescribing her. Her skin is a little bit more curdled. And I wanted to get two scenes in of this. I wanted to get one scene that described her conflict and her desire and her want. And then a second one to just further emphasize it. And seeing it as I'm at about 600 words, I feel like that's all I could have fit in. So imagine it's just kind of two small scenes bookended by the beginning and then the beginning, which is the end. Because we don't really know where she is other than a room at the very beginning. She's got a basin. She's cleaning her hands. Presumably she's going to birth a child. I mean, deliver a child. But we find out, and I think another thing that it was kind of a side effect or a happy accident was, she's cleaning her hands, and at the very end, she doesn't touch the child. So I think there's some subtext there as well, which I kind of like thinking about it again, is that, in the beginning, you think she's going to deliver a child because she's cleaning up, and, the title is called Midwife. And then at the end, she's just admiring the baby. She's given in to the fact that this isn't going to happen. She's an old woman. She can't run away from these men who are breaking down the door to get her. And so she's just resigned to her fate and decides to admire the child from afar because she's caused too much pain throughout her life. Trying to become a mother, trying to, the selfish desires have just snowballed into decades upon decades of tragedy for other people as well as herself. And now this poor woman is trying to take the baby away, and here I am changing her skin back to curdled cream. It's funny the way you think, or I think anyway, is like, why did I go back to this point? Why, I'm having her with the child in the final scene or the final flashback, and she's not like, she's doing actions. Why am I thinking about the way she looks? I guess it's interesting how your mind jumps around, even though you're usually in the moment or in the scene with the characters. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do here. I immediately populated the house that she was in with a lot of people. So she was kind of becoming riskier and riskier with her actions. And knowing that, if she's in this big house with a lot of people downstairs waiting for this child, the chances of escape were slim. And that's exactly what happens. She gets blocked by a man as large as a door, looking through the doorway, and finally gets caught. And this was a bit of a I didn't really go into it, but hopefully it was implied by the rag doll when I have these two children fighting over a rag doll of what the visual that was happening there between this man and this midwife. And here's when I decided to, he grabbed her by her shoulders, relieving her of her cloak, which revealed her shoulders and itched fiercely. I should have described that a little bit more, I think. because that just means her shoulders itch. That doesn't mean they're turning into these gnarled horns. On to the draft, right? That will be in the final draft. But I think that's what's great about doing these quick stories is you can look back and see where you can fill in the holes and tweak some stuff, especially when it's in short form like this. And that's what I'm really playing around with a lot in my writing, is just to do kind of this vomit draft or this draft zero where I'm less concerned about the prose and all the details and just trying to do like a very, very rough sketch. Even sometimes when I don't have chapters outlined in my longer form stuff. I stream it, and so it's a little bit nerve wracking because you never know, someone's going to jump into the stream and be like, oh man, these words are garbage. Because it's all out of context. Because at the beginning of the stream, I always explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And, the reason why I share my screen, and I know a lot of people don't when they do these streams, is because hopefully it makes people feel better about their own work, right? They can come here, they can see my pace and how terrible my words may be. And hopefully that will allow people to just kind of, turn their inner editor off a little bit. Whether or not it works, I have no idea, but that's the goal of the writing streams. Here I am using the puddle as a device, showing her an outline that was no angel, but a darkness, the color of blood mixed with shadow. So this is the device again, because the very next line, her hands, palms up, shriveled and tired, were clean. We are taking her back to the beginning, back full circle, because I'm a sucker for it. Not just for the fact that this is kind of a reminiscing or traveling, flashbacking through time and they actually did. I'm sure you guessed it because I said the line a few times in the story, how it would end, or what the last line would be. And of course, it's probably what you expected, and that's okay. I feel like maybe it was a little heavy-handed in there, but not too bad. And you can see I'm an hour at 22, 979, haven't even hit 1,000. I'm, a solid 10 minutes or more over my normal time. This was a tough one. I think I'm going to have to do another portrait one sometime soon in the future, because you really want to just work those those muscles out. I mean, this is why I do this. It's because I don't want every story to be easy, and really none of them are. There's some that I think the words come easier than others, but the goal is to get better, and you're not going to get better if you keep doing the same thing. So that's what this was. I'll give you a little spoiler. The very few of you who actually watch this part of the video, I know it's a bit tedious, but I'm thinking about, I found some other artwork that's just like rooms, right? It's a interior of, let's say, a cabin, and there's various things strewn about, like some coats hanging on the wall, and the rumpled sheets of a bed, like a coffee mug, and I was wondering, what would a story be like without anybody in it, without any actual people or creatures or sentient beings in it? So that might be an experiment coming up soon. It could be a complete disaster. It could be a very boring story, but that's okay. It's just try to figure out all the different ways to tell a story and find out what works, what doesn't, and then hopefully some of those things I learn I'll carry into my other work. But anyway, this one, it was all right. It's all right story. It's not terrible. It's not great. I don't think it's one of the better ones. Not even close. But here it is, and with all its warts, right? That's what this is. I don't want you to watch these and think they're all great. I'm not saying I'm the greatest writer, not even close, but I will always put everything up I do, because we don't always land them. I'll tell you that. But I am coming to the end, finally. 1,002 words. I just got to chip away 2 more words, and then we're going to call it. And there we are. Welcome to the end, dear viewer. I am so glad you made it, and we have some things to talk about. This story was okay. It was just okay. I wasn't super happy with it, but it is what it is. First and foremost, should we talk about the good or the bad? Let's talk about the good first. So the good things that I did like was that I actually came up with a concept with just looking at this woman's face. So there is that. I was able to create something that had a logical structure to it, something that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and hopefully some kind of, with hopefully an interesting, compelling introduction, and then some kind of closure. Some of the imagery I enjoyed. I like the transition I created from using the reflection. So the thing I got in my head initially when seeing this was this woman just gazing upon her reflection. And I know a lot of times in books, you said don't describe a character by having them look at themselves in the mirror, where I think that was a little bit different here. It was used as a device for her to remember her past, to go back to the places that brought her to where she is now and what she is. So I think that's it. I think that's I think that's all I like about the story. Let's talk about the bad things. So the bad things are communication. I don't believe I was very clear. Our amazing artist here created this very interesting, creepy image of this woman with these bone-like protrusions starting to sprout up from her shoulders, and even her head was just kind of warped and odd shaped, as if she had these horns or this triangular skull of some kind. And I never really talked about it. I brought it up. I talked about the itching on the shoulders and the bonnet not quite fitting right. And that is what the intention of those lines were, but I never really talked about the detail, the great detail. And what I like to do in these is at some point, I want to show you the picture, right, in the writing. I want to describe what you're seeing. And hopefully it's this great, like, mental pleasure of you seeing the true story of this image, or at least my interpretation of what that could be. And I just didn't feel like I did it. Now, while I was writing, I felt like, oh, this is okay. I kept hinting, right? I like to tease things out a bit because you don't want to give everything away right in the beginning. But I don't think I ever gave the payoff. And when I go back to edit this for publication, I will definitely fix that. That is one of the things that I will do for sure. And hopefully I don't get too thrown off by keeping the 1,000 word count and then trying to communicate that. I'm sure I'll be all right. It may take a little bit more work than the others. So what did I learn from this lesson? Well, a story can be derived from a human's face. However, it is far more difficult than going off of a piece of artwork that has an actual scene or implications of a scene about to happen, a dialogue, something of that sort. But it can be done. Can it yield a good story? I don't know. I don't believe I delivered a great story. I believe I delivered a very average story. And that's okay. They're all not going to be great. I'm not going to be happy with all of them. But one thing I learned, and it's funny because I write one of these a week, and you think this would have occurred to me, but I think I've really wrapped my head around telling a complete story in the short form, and very short form, in 1,000 words. I don't realize how few words that is until I go back and read it or drop it into a document and just really see how short it is. Because when I'm writing it, it takes me, about an hour to do so. And so I correlate that time with length, but it's really not that at all. And so one thing I'm really happy about is, and I've heard a lot of you who watch this channel talk to me, or at least on live streams, about how it's difficult to write a short story. How do you distill down an idea into something small instead of blowing it up into an epic or a novel or a series of novels? And not only that, but make it feel like a story, like make it have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'll say it again. I said it on stream, but I'll say it again now in case you don't watch my streams. But think of a short story as a scene. That's it. And if you're not writing your scenes like a short story, you're doing it wrong. Every single scene should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, if you go by Sean Coyne's 5 commandments of storytelling, which I don't have memorized, so I'm going to read to you right here. They are the inciting incident, progressive complication, crisis, climax, and resolution. Those should be in every scene of your novel. So if you're doing that and you've written a novel, you've written a short story. And if you're not doing that, you should start doing it. It has greatly improved my writing. I feel like every chapter I write is a hook into the next one. Whereas I've noticed a lot in my reading of fiction that a lot of authors seem to use arbitrary reasoning on where to end a chapter. It's either, oh, I'm tired of this, I want to switch to another character for no apparent reason other than to switch to another character, or end a chapter with too much of a resolution and not a lead into the next one, because that's really what you want to do. Sean Coyne calls the shorter chapters of 1,500 to around 2,000 words as they're potato chip size, right? keep eating them one after the other and after the other. Because when you have these bloated 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 word chapters, it's just kind of a chore to get through. And it's just this weird psychological game where, you know, you see the end of the chapter and you're like, oh, I completed some. It's like you're gamifying reading essentially. And I think when you gamify your writing that way, it'll not only help you organize your thoughts and organize your novel and teach you how to write short stories, but I think it will keep your readers hooked. At least that's my theory. That's Sean Coyne's theory. He's an editor with over 25 years of experience in traditional publishing, so I'm just going to say I think he knows what he's talking about. But I'll leave it at that. I highly encourage you to check out his book. It explains everything far more eloquently than I ever could, but it is one of the foundations of the writing I do. Well, if you'd like to support the channel and you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, subscribe if you like story-related content. Check out my live streams. Come hang out with me on Saturday and Sunday where I do live writing with other people trying to get either writing or other creative tasks done. It's a really fun group of people, and I think it's great to be surrounded by individuals who are trying to do the same thing as you are. Or you can check out my book. It's completely free. It's on Amazon and anywhere ebooks are sold. It's called The Field, and I do have the other one coming out shortly. But that is it for me. So keep reading, keep writing, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye. If you'd like to read the story in its non-video format, check the link in the description. I didn't edit anything else, promise. Thanks again.